A very good evening to everyone present here. Welcome to another Baatein session. We have with us today Dipendra Baoni. He is an NIT alumni and the founder of Lemon Design and the managing director as well. It is an integrated design studio focusing on design thinking that creates holistic design solutions. It's based in Pune and works with experiences and interactions which create a holistic experience. Welcome aboard. If you could please join me on the dais.
So you had done your schooling in Darjeeling. What was that like?
It was great actually. Growing up in a place like Darjeeling, I think you're very fortunate. My parents are artists, and they sort of my dad got a teaching position in one of a very old school, so I was lucky to be studying there. I studied from class 1 to 12 there. It was a boarding school, so it was all guys from class 1 to 12. Great fun, we did crazy stuff, and we had a great campus. So yeah, I mean it was like an oasis. And plus quite in the hills, so if any of you know how hill schools are, they're very sort of fun, difficult, but yet sort of enriching when you sort of look back at it. So yeah, it was very exciting.
How different was it when you transitioned to Ahmedabad, and what was NIT like back then?
So what was NIT like back then? So firstly I'll start with when I came here, I actually didn't intend to come here. I was more sort of inclined towards engineering, and I wanted to do applied mathematics and theoretical physics and quantum physics and stuff like that. But my dad said, there's a very good college called NIT, so why don't you just try for it? And some of my friends told me that, dude, you've been in a boys' school all your life. There are amazing girls in NIT. So that was one of the strongest motivators. That I finally get to meet the opposite sex. So yeah, I mean, that being one of the motivators to come in. And then I obviously took it quite casually because I was quite hell-bent on doing IIT and engineering and science and stuff like that. But when I came here, I think it was a great culture shock. I couldn't imagine, and there are very interesting people like Himal sitting here, and these are my sort of predecessors. They were the seniors, and they created a sort of great culture for us to come into. A legacy of thinking, a legacy of work, so I was a pretty good student in art as well, but when I came here, I got a complex because everybody was much better, much better, and then that was my own badge, okay, and then when you look at the seniors, you just wanted to sort of hide somewhere, because you never thought you could reach that position or that place, and they were doing some amazing stuff, we could hear about interactive work and digital work, which is just sort of starting, and NID at that time was very focused on developing your skills of the mind and the hand, and the computers were still a new sort of thing. But then when you have guys like him who are already doing cutting edge stuff on interactivity and they're working with the biggest companies in the country, and I, because I was a science tech kind of a guy, I was always inclined towards computers. So, that it sort of really, you felt that you've come from a very small place with you're from a pond, and then you suddenly see the ocean and you realize that, my God, there's an infinite amount of abundance, and each person was so unique. You had graphic designers, film and video guys, you had animators, you had product designers, you had ceramic designers, and though you may not be interested in it, but you could be anything but fascinated and awed by the work that you saw, and you just wanted to grow up and be like them, at some point, anything. And I think what NIT did is sort of, it broke all the shackles, of how one should think, because you can think the way you think, you don't have to be like somebody. And I think that was my most important realization when I came here. Though it took some time, it took 2-3 years to sort of comprehend what was happening to you. I think you all go through that, and especially more so you guys, because you've also sort of come from a very unprecedented phase of humanity, where you guys have done a lot of online stuff, which I don't think we could have ever imagined. In fact, 3 years back, if you were to say to somebody that the world will come to a stop, they'd laugh at you. And today, nature's laughing at us. So I think, but what IIT mostly taught me is to sort of, and the seniors were, of course, there was that side of the campus and, that side of the campus. And you were learning different things than both sides. The faculty, of course, they were gods by themselves, each one of them. We were very fortunate to have probably all the names that you can think of, from Mahendrabhai to SM, to Manu Bajjar, to everyone, Ravi Mukashi, all these faculty, Ranjan, Ranjan's a very important name, for me in my life. I think, and for many of you who probably study design process now, the way Ranjan sort of saw it, and he contextualized it from the India report, to what India needs, and actually how we can understand it as kids who are coming out of school. So I think that was, and I can keep going on taking names, and Jiu and Panchal and everyone, each faculty was like a gold mine by itself, and everyone told you different things but the same thing. And that in the beginning was very confusing, but later on you realize that thank God that happened to you. That the uncomfortable situations where you don't know whether you're even worth it, whether you come to the wrong place. I think all of us have had this existential crisis here, where most of the days you feel you don't belong here, and what. Then by the 4th year you realize that, this is where I really need to spend some more time. That's because you've also helped your seniors put up their pre-dates. So whether you're a graphic designer, batchmate is putting up something, you've got to go there and help, because his pre-date is going to go up, or jury, or something. So there was this beyond oneself. You learn to be not about yourself and your work, but just about what needs to be done at that point, who needs your help, what is happening in the campus, where can you chip in, And yes, the entire campus was 150 people at that point, and there were 200 faculty and 200 staff, so there was like abundance. You went in, you had rosewood and this and that, though you learned the value of rosewood and when to use it, but it was there for you to sort of play with, and that was very unprecedented. In school it was, of course, mine was a convent sort of Christian boarding school, so everything was very structured and this thing, and yet I think there was an opening on thanks to my parents and my upbringing, but this stuff was a different universe, and I think you guys are experiencing it too, and the only thing is, I think what you guys are perhaps don't have what we had was you have a fracture, which is both a good thing as well as a bad thing. When there's a sort of flow, everything happens in the flow, and you take for granted a lot of what the culture is. So if I came 3 years back, everyone was, I want to do this, I want to do this, I am a typographer, I want to do font design, I want to do product design of this kind, I want to do this, and we do that, but fortunately for us, our seniors were so inspiring that we couldn't help but see the merit of everything. Even if you're a product designer, I'm a product design graduate, Even if you're a product designer, graphics, how can a product go without packaging? What is its logo? What is its name? And at that point, interactivity was coming in. So can we do a CD-ROM of it, which explains its features? Can we do an exhibition of it? So that's what we were thinking about. We were thinking about things more holistically. So I never really learned to do product design. Okay, though my interests were specifically in transportation at that time, which wasn't offered. So I used to sort of fight with Pradumna and say, I want to do a car for this, my DCP. And he's like, nobody's done a car for DCP, how can you do it? And I was like, no, I'll do it. So he's like, if you can't finish it, then you'll have a year repeat. I said, okay, fine, I'll still do it. Because you had also seniors who were here for 7 years, and so you knew that there was no really time limit to learning. And in fact, learning is a lifelong process. So you develop an attitude towards knowing and curiosity. It wasn't about learning. Because today you guys see learning as a very tedious task, but we saw it more from a point of view of curiosity. I wanted to know what Hemant was doing. Period. How does he do it? And he would always open his doors and he'd say, aise karega. So there was no, I'll hold back my idea or he'll take it. And I think that's what made me really grow. It wasn't my work that made me grow, I think it's the others' work that made me grow. So I think that's the only thing that NID teaches you. How you can move beyond yourself and recognize and that's what I think empathy, you guys know the word, but that's what it's truly about, My discomfort, fine, but is the other person comfortable? So that both can be comfortable, and that's the time I started realizing that design is not about creating a better life, it's creating win-win. It doesn't have to be transactional. It doesn't have to be client has asked you to do this, so you do that. It's what can I bring into what can I bring to the table? And I think this is what NIT is all about. And I think you guys are experiencing it. And I'll come back to it. And so today, I realize that you guys don't have that senior because they've all left. But I think that gives you a very interesting opportunity to step back and realize what that culture was and re-look at it and reposition it, restructure it in your minds, because you have a new opportunity. It's a metamorphosis. If NIT was a cocoon then, you're becoming the butterfly now. You have the opportunity to, whether you do or not all caterpillars do become butterflies. And I think that's applicable to each individual. We have to learn to break out of our shells, our prejudices. I like this, I don't like this, I like that, I don't like this. This is the biggest problem in life, I realize. Because tomorrow you might get a project on something that you don't like. How are you going to be awesome at that? And that cannot happen through having a like or a dislike. So I think you guys have that opportunity to redefine what NIT really is. And I think many of you are doing it, because when I came, I've been doing this course here for which I am, Emerging Scenarios. It's a systems thinking course for MDes graphic design, which Tarun's not here, but I think you guys are very fortunate to have him at the helm of the academics. Because and believe me, whether you appreciate it or not, he's between a rock and a hard place. I've said this perhaps 100 times in the last 1 week, because there is a certain dynamic that's happening at a macro level, globally, nationally, at the state level. And I think, I don't need to say it, but you guys all feel it, know it, okay? And we don't want to be political here, but there is a lot happening which is not necessarily great for us if we question it, okay? But to keep that value system, okay, of empathy, of working towards a larger cause, okay, is a very difficult proposition when you're working in that sort of a landscape that happens outside this gate, and to sustain that, and in spite of that continue to sort of carry the same value system forward, okay. I think it's hats off to these guys, Praveen and the rest of the whole management and Tarun, and they are alumni, they are seniors. Tarun was 3 years my senior. Praveen came in a little later, but these guys, they embodied what NIT was, and what they're trying to do is give you that in spite of the landscape changing outside. So you guys have to learn to appreciate that. It can't be, because I think students and colleges or learning institutions have had a very funny relationship in the last 2 decades or so, where I think students feel entitled that I paid my fees, I need to get this. But the thing is, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. Okay? And these guys are facilitating the knowledge that makes you understand what to drink and how to drink. But it's up to you guys to drink. But we'll end up complaining that ye nahi mil raha hai, ye nahi mil raha hai. Believe me, we didn't have half the shit you guys had. We didn't have an air-conditioned Audi. This is like such a place. We used to just come here because it was the coolest place in the campus. To come here, film screening ho rahi hai, film ke bahane so jao idhar. You get nice those 2 hours of sleep. Honestly, isn't that what it was? So you guys are very, very fortunate. Believe me, you have laptops, you have Wi-Fi, you have this, you have that. But believe me, all these things are actually also holding you back. Because when you learn to work with nothing, okay, you can work with anything. So I think that's, for me, I can go on about an idea all day. So I mean, and maybe you have specific questions which we can take up later, but yeah.
It was lovely hearing about your experience in NIT. What you were saying earlier about creating a system that is a win-win for both parties, is that what sort of led you to begin the humane .com?
Absolutely. But that was still it came much later on in my life. Okay, at first it was, see, you go into a world where you think that, this is the way the world is. I have to do this in order for me to survive, in order for me to do this. So you start running. Okay, and Tarun said something very interesting yesterday we had a very nice dinner yesterday by the MBA's graphic design students. Okay, he said something very interesting yesterday, that we are all in a rat race. But if you look back at it, if you're running the rat race, it still makes you a rat. Okay. And that's what I realized, I mean, these guys, I don't know how they started design, because I don't think design was in the vocabulary of this country. Okay, so for them to start an organization, he runs a beautiful organization called Fractaling, which was one of the greatest inspirations for me when I was starting. Okay, and then seeing all these other guys, his batchmates and his juniors. Okay, Elephant and Design Direction and Tony Lopez, and there are great names. But you saw them, and I mean, they were the guys. They have taken design and put it out there. Okay, and in spite of a landscape that only understands advertising, marketing, technocrats, bureaucrats. So there were few design studios there. Okay, and when I sort of graduated out of NIT, I was a transportation designer, But when I came out, due to certain personal reasons, I couldn't pursue transportation. I would have had to shift to Italy. My parents needed me here, so I decided that listen, I got to work in India. I met some of these people, and they always had open doors. And most of them advised me that if you want to do something, because I didn't want to do anything specific. I'm a transportation designer, I didn't want to land up making rearview mirrors or some trim or some product graphics. I want to make a car. I want to make a Ferrari. So, and that I knew was not possible for me to do alone. It requires a team. So I met a lot of people, and most of them told me, it seems like you want to do everything, so why don't you start on your own? Because at that point there were graphic design studios, there were product design studios, there were, I wanted to sort of do everything. So I didn't know what to do. So I just sat back and I got lucky because a friend of mine was making films. So he said, "Tu publicity posters karega kya?" And I knew Photoshop. I mean, there was no Photoshop that time. It had just come in. But I also, all thanks to Ranjan, I managed to I had the whole Apple lab to myself, some 6-7 computers, and I could, because nobody was interested, so sab khali hai. Ranjan had given me the key, so I was like, chalo, dekhte kya hai. So convocation panels, I would sort of say, let's make it on Macromedia freehand, or and then, so I mean, I had a lot of fun. I mean, I got to learn so much. I learned the first generation of software, so today when I see new software with new upgrades, they're not that different. So it helped me adapt to all the tools and things that keep changing. Because I probably went about it more heuristically. I learned the first generation of things. So yeah, I mean, so computers had helped me, and this guy wanted a poster. So I made some posters, and then he said, so we also want to do titling. So I said, oh yeah, that's like very exciting, I want to do titling too. So I said, okay, fine. And then they said I want website, and that time there was this thing called Flash, which you could code. And I was always a coder, from class 6 I used to code, and I was fascinated with coding. So I was like, this is a very interesting tool, because I got to somebody for a website, and I showed him that, and he's like, ऐसे थोड़ी होता है, वेबसाइट में ऐसे टॉप बार होता है, एक साइड बार होता है, तुमको क्या कर रहे हो, इधर माउस जाएगा तो ये दिखेगा, इधर माउस जाएगा तो आवाज आएगी, ऐसे कोई नहीं करता है. अच्छा. So I said, but there was this one bunch of people in UK, okay, and who one of my seniors had trained with, okay. There was a company called Anti-ROM, okay, and it was started by an underground music group, okay, who then became the Ministry of Sound, and they had. So if you guys have seen this movie called Clockwork Orange and Trainspotting, they've done the music. And I was like into that music, Prodigy had just come out, and electronic music and all of that. So I was very excited about bringing that in with interactivity, so that electronic music you can layer. So I was thinking that what if you press one button and one bass track comes in, then you press another thing and there's a mid-tone, so it starts becoming, and each different track plays. So whenever you are your journey is different. So if you click something in a particular sequence, the music is different. If you click something in a different sequence, the music is different. So I wanted to do that kind of stuff, and Flash allowed me to do that. So I got into it, and then we started doing a lot of websites and a lot of different things, whatever came our way. And I think that was the beginning of Lemon. Okay. Then my brother said, listen dude, you're getting payments, you have to pay taxes. So I said, okay, company, he said company shuru kar do. So I was like, fine. So he got it registered and everything in Delhi. And I didn't want to be in Delhi. Sorry if you guys are some of you from Delhi, but it's a place I like to touch and go if necessary, otherwise not. But I think it's a very harsh environment. I think it's gone through historically a lot of hardships. So it's created a behavior which is a little harsher than I feel the rest of the country. I don't want to judge, because I have a friend of mine who just left. He's from Delhi, and so it's obviously people. But then as a place, if you were to sort of think. So I went, and earlier we used to call ourselves Design Asylum. Okay. But when we went to the ROC, they said, "No, make it. You can't have design as the first word, so make it asylum design," which just was not right, Yeah. So then he said, "Come back after a few weeks." I had already paid for tickets, I couldn't go back. So I said, "Can I fill another form?" And that's because many of you will end up asking why Lemon. I'm telling you the story. It's the first name that came to my mind, and I said Lemon because I liked the color at that time. I was exploring that color. But then also as a thing, Lemon is very interesting because it actually does nothing, and I think that's what design does. I think most design is invisible. Good design is always invisible. I mean, you don't understand a fan, you just put it on and it works, and I think that's what good design should do. So I wanted a metaphor which I think I got, though I never thought of it so much at that point. But lemon, you put it in poha, it doesn't make the poha into a lemon, it still remains poha, but it's just a nicer, vibrant, more poha, or you put it on a tart and it's still a tart, but it's a nice lemon tart now, So I think that's the function of design, and we want to be invisible, we always wanted to be invisible because I think that's how design works, And I sort of am awed by the guys who sort of create cryptic design, because then I find it a lot of aesthetics, but the design really sometimes the usability, all the other necessary stuff gets compromised, and we didn't want to do that as a philosophy. So I think that's why I called it, that's why I just called it lemon, and later on I realized, oh, that's interesting. There's a lot of stuff but it actually started off with just the color. Love the color. I love making products in that color actually. Automotive, some trims in that color were very cool. So I think that's how it started. Even the logo, it just happened. It was very sort of. It's actually a section of a lemon, but it's also about a splash. It's also about convergence and divergence. It's about being together as a cohesive unit yet being separate. I think it all happened very intuitively, without much thinking, and I think that's something that NID really teaches you if you want to learn. If you want to rationalize everything, then I don't think that such things happen, But if you do stuff intuitively which cannot be rationalized, then also it's not happening. So I think there are two ways of looking at things always. Yeah. So that was the lemon start, but very soon, around 6-7 years of practice, by the time you sort of really realize what's happening, I realized that I'm doing a lot of work and the world is moving in a particular way, and I realized I'm contributing to all the consumerism. I'm making great packaging, great websites, I didn't know whether it has that substance, but I was definitely making it profitable for a few people, okay? But then I realized, why am I feeling so guilty about it? Because is it really value that I'm providing, or is it profit that I'm providing? And that's the time it sort of started playing in my head that I can't be feeling guilty because I love my work. I love what we do. We're doing it passionately. We're working hard till 4 in the morning. Sometimes not sleeping for 2 nights, 3 nights, and everybody's doing that. And then why am I feeling guilty about it? Because I could clearly see what I was doing was just adding to the consumerism, to the capitalism, to the greed, to the I'm better than you, I wear this brand, so I'm cooler than you. And that's exactly what we don't want to do as a society, because it's sort of dividing us. It's making each one sort of more and more, we're putting ourselves into a shell, and that's not what the function of design is. So I think that's the time this journey sort of started for Humane. And I worked with Ambrish, I worked with Shimul, I worked with Praveen, I worked with Tarun, different. That's the time I got back into teaching. I said that, maybe it's 1 month in a year I want to teach. Because before that I actually didn't know what I could teach, whether it was worth teaching, And I think that's the time we sort of dug in and I started doing systems design. Okay, and I realized that ये तो वही systems कर रहे हैं जो हम कर रहे थे, और जो हमारे seniors कर रहे थे, ये तो same systems हैं. So there was a thing that if it's the same thing, then there's obviously a connection. Why is year after year, and this is the best of the country, okay? why are we doing the same systems over and over again, whether it's wastage, whether it's sanitation, whether it's security, whether it's water, whether it's food, health, everything, everyone is doing the same thing, just a different dimension of it. Every year you guys also do the same things. So, and this is a discussion that many of us with Tarun's main gate, with Praveen, with all the faculty, SM, all the faculty were there, Hemant, like today we met him, I met him, So like that, NIT has this thing, it's a watering hole, everyone comes, whoever's been a part of this. I really see this campus as a temple, because it's what made me who I am today. Of course my parents, of course my schooling, but to really comprehend what is going on, and you being a small part of this large universe, that's the only time you could see that there is, they say that a fish is the last thing to see water, because you take it for granted, and this is the place that showed me water, and so yeah, and then you come back, because when you move out of this place, these debates and discussions happen very few. When you meet a bunch of friends, because you caught up most of the time, or you want to unwind and you just want to party hard, and that time used to go like crazy. 10 o'clock we used to start partying till 4 o'clock, then get up and go because you're late for a meeting, So that was life for the first 8-10 years. And then we used to have these discussions in this place, And this place has never, even today, I can literally just sleepwalk here, because nothing's changed. I can see Madhulika sitting there, I can see, Nitesh sitting there, I can see all you guys are the same guys, it's just different names. You're doing the same thing, ऐसे चल रहे हो, वो आर्ट बोर्ड, ड्राइंग बोर्ड लेके, या टेक्सटाइल वाले लोग आ रहे, बास्केटबॉल मैच खत्म होने के बाद, so it's the same thing, so nothing's changed, but everything's changed. So that's why this place is like stuck in time, but so fluid, and so this time I think this place is a portal, very frankly, and that's what. So we used to come here and we used to be like, why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? That's when, I think 6 years back, Tarun, we didn't have a systems design course in graphics. Okay? So we thought that's a great opportunity to sort of start connecting the dots, because I think communication is the other dimension. It's the other side of the coin. If you make a product, the other side of the coin is the communication. They work hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Okay? So we started thinking of systems. So first thing we did was take all the from the 60s, we took all the batches, the systems projects, and we mapped it. Okay, so that was the first batch. The second batch, we tried to connect those dots. Okay, the third batch, we sort of started seeing the connections. The fourth batch, we wanted to do an installation which tells people these connections. So we did a graphic design studio. Maybe there was this big typography called Think. I'll probably show you a photo journey. I'm sorry guys, I've not prepared any presentation, but why this Baatein also happened is because a lot of people were asking me the same questions in different pockets. So I thought maybe we can just talk about it together, then I don't have to probably do that over and over again. So again, designers are very lazy people also. Learn to be lazy, because that's when you can chill the most. So I work so that I can relax. I don't have to do anything. And I think he's reached that phase where he's doing nothing now, because he's done everything and he's doing wildlife photography. And he's learning Blender. Not learning, I think he's a pro now at Blender. So look at him. Yeah, you guys say I don't know this tool. I say I don't say that. But look at him. He learned Blender. Yeah. So there's no age. It's curiosity too. And the thing is, forget the idea of being grown up. Don't grow up, in fact. Be a kid, because that's where life is. Grown up guys talk push. Sorry. Okay, ask Anuj that. Okay, I don't think he'll ever grow up. Okay, so yeah. Where was I?
We
Yeah, so how much time do we have? Okay. So even if you don't show you anything, it's okay. I mean, we can just, unless I'm boring you guys. So yeah, I mean, this happened and I started seeing the dots, okay, because all thanks to the numerous batches that we've worked together with, including this batch, okay, and serendipity happens. Okay, I went to do a branding project in Meghalaya. I'm from the Northeast, but you know, Northeast is a different universe. For many of you who are from there, okay, we sort of live a very different life, and we're still 30 years behind in the Northeast. Thank God for that. Okay, because we've not done the bad things that the rest of the mainland of this country has done. Okay, it hasn't yet reached there because it's been ignored. It's too inaccessible. Okay, and thank God for that. Though now there's all Lay's packages and Coke cans and all that are accumulating, but fortunately the villagers clean it up themselves now. You know, they in fact become the cleanest village in the country because they're aspiring to that now. So the aspirations have changed. They don't want to be the city anymore. And I think we're very fortunate that there is still that Garden of Eden. Okay. So I went there for a branding project for which I was supposed to do logo and packaging. I landed up building a house there out of bamboo because I saw tribal techniques and how even my driver knows how to weave bamboo because he's slept on that material, he's eaten on that, cooked with that material. He's done everything that can possibly be done with that material. And I realized that, okay, on one side we have carbon fiber and Kevlar and this and that. And here's this product which today ISRO is using to, so I found out this because there's this very nice Vivekanand Sirji, he was called here. He's working with ISRO on creating lightweight solar panels and they're using bamboo, okay, for space. Okay, so I was, as a product designer, you like, I think material really sort of gets your juices flowing, you know. And here's this ancient material and just a few people know about it and they're using it so profoundly. You have houses that are woven, okay, you know, the same pattern is on the wall of a house because you use bamboo to weave it, okay, and everything, and then suddenly you see this supreme plastic chair, okay, and you're like, why is it here, you know, this red out of the place thing, okay. So I called Anuj there because we decided that, yeah, I love living in this hut, but कीड़े आ जाते हैं, बड़े-बड़े मेंढक आ जाते हैं, and if you touch that मेंढक, you die. Okay, so you're like, oh shit, you know, yeah, because Anuj and I सो रहे थे रात को एक झोपड़ी में, okay, and this place was, if you have to walk it, it's around an hour and a half from the closest village. Forget the hospital, okay. And in the morning I see a snake, okay, and Anuj and I had just slept and it was, the snake was basking in the wall of the house, okay, and I was like, shit, सांप, Anuj सो रहा था उधर ही, उसके पीछे ही सांप है. They're like, shit यार, ये तो मतलब this is a serious design problem, okay, because it feels so good, you know, this bamboo houses, but it's not hygienic, it is not. It's not safe, okay. But when you see a resort which is well designed, it is using the same techniques, but they've built in the hygiene, they've built in the health, they've built in the quality of life that you and I today expect to have, okay. So what I realized is that so I told Anuj that, Anuj, can you come, because I think inside the hut I need a tent. Okay, so that it sort of seals off and you get that softer feel inside, you know. So Anuj landed up and we did experiments and, you know, we started building those things, okay. And then I wanted to, from at least our place, I wanted to get rid of all those plastic chairs, okay. So we started making bamboo chairs, okay. And interestingly what happened is, so there's a cultural thing, people always, you know, when you, so it's the way we treat people, you know, they're laborers. So So they treat us like, oh, they are the bosses. Okay, and I think that is the biggest problem. Okay, because we don't have dignity for each other. But believe me, he does better work than any of us. Okay, that guy, because he can make a chair. How many of you are FID students? How many of you can make a chair in a day? A day?
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, but this guy has had no training and he can make it in a day. You know, which to me was like, wow. And that chair doesn't move after 2 years. It doesn't creak, it doesn't this thing. He knew how to make pins and hammer it in, and none of that stuff I'd shown him or anything. I just said कि नहीं ऐसा नहीं करते, ऐसा करते, you know, थोड़ा सा. But then rest he took, you know. And that's when I realized that, you know, they need the dignity and the respect, because until they understand and they value what they do, they'll keep buying Supreme plastic chairs. I mean, Supreme plastic. I don't want to, you know, like, I'm just using that as an example. I'm sure they do great stuff, you know. But I think it doesn't belong in that place, you know. And why, if you can, that $600 doesn't need to be spent because this guy earns $350 a day. Okay, so you know, those are the things that you start seeing. Okay, and you realize that, you know, there is another way of looking at things. Okay, so that's when I kind of started obsessing with, can we create systems that are not transactional and hierarchical? Okay, and priority, that first priority is ye solve karo, you know, make it more viable, make it more feasible, make it more desirable. You know, it's very human centered, and the center, so this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, that tree is mine, it's a beautiful chair, you know, it's just mine. And though that's why we've landed up mining everything, you know. So, you know, it just wasn't right. Okay, because you're mining and getting it here, okay? But think about the miner, you know, do you think he's happy mining that at 60 degrees? If you've ever been to a mine, you'll know it's just not humanly possible to live there, but people are doing it because they have to feed their children. So when you take that energy, put it into your house, because it's a beautiful railing of steel and a glass, you know, you're also bringing that energy to your home. Then how can you not be running the race? Because that energy is bleeding into you, and that's why you're running the race. Because the moment you go to Himachal or you go to Northeast or something, you're not running the race suddenly. You're happy that this phone is not on network. Client is not able to reach you, dude. You know? So, I mean, that was the aspiration. You know, can we not do that? So I think that's where it started, and then things just sort of, I don't know, it's like I said, serendipity, synchronicity, everything. If you really want something, you know that Shah Rukh Khan dialogue, but actually it is by Paulo Coelho, you know. If you really desire something, the whole universe will make it happen. You know, so, you know, we think that we are alone and we have to fend for ourselves and we're surviving, that's why I have to cut the person down. But no, the moment you join hands, you're bigger, you become two people, okay? You become a collective, and I think that's what the dream became. So we started fantasizing about a village that doesn't need anybody and you can self-sustain. But very quickly we realized that that's the same individualistic attitude. So we said, okay, let's just change the brief, and we said, okay, this village has to be able to take care of only its neighbor. Okay, that's it. So can we create an ecosystem that can only help its neighborhood? That's it. And if you just then connect that, you have the whole world. Okay, because everyone, if you connect with the neighbor, okay, you have something great going. And that's how you can build a small module. And as a product designer, you're obsessed with modular systems. You know, you just do this one Lego piece and that fits. And then you can make a castle out of it, you can make a spacecraft out of it, you can make whatever you want. You know? And I think that's what the obsession was, to create this humane design thing rather than a human-centered design thing. Can we bring out the E in humane, that is the empathy? Can we make it humane? Why do we call it humankind? Have you ever wondered, is it about the kindness or is it about the human part? Tarun said that yesterday, and then, language, the words you use, everything changes, okay? It changes your behavior, it changes attitude, and I think that's the true role of a designer, when you take a brief but you think underneath it, what you show is the iceberg, but what's underneath the iceberg is really what our job is, guys, and there are great examples around you, they're all around you. So I think that's what happened, and then lockdown happened. I couldn't go to the Northeast. I'm a big fan of hemp. Okay, so that was the other engineering material, because I realized that they, ancients used to use hemp as a bioplastic. Hemp has so many purposes, including psychological, physiological, metaphysical. There are so many functions of hemp. Okay, and that ancient culture knew these materials, and these materials are engineering materials. They're so versatile. Name one material that can be so versatile, and they're all natural materials. So since lockdown, I couldn't do that. For the last 15 years, every time I wanted to escape reality, I ran to Himachal. Okay, I ran again to Himachal this time. Okay, and I was meeting people. So obviously, everyone knows Khamir, who works with Kala cotton. They work with a beautiful cotton, which is one of the few remnants of cotton that remained after the British got their long fiber cottons and changed the entire cotton landscape. So apparently in India there were 2,000 varieties of cotton, out of which now there are only maybe 10. I'm not great with numbers, but you get the idea. And there was one cotton from Jharkhand which changed color during the day. And I'm still trying to find out who has the seeds for that. So, these materials, when you do it through engineering, they're very, very costly. Cyanoacrylates, those kind of things. And there's so much chemicals and toxins that go into making them. But here is nature giving you this material, and it just uses simple ideas of polarization, So, I think we started working with Khamir because cotton was another material, and at that time it was difficult to make big products, so we said let's get into clothing, because I think that's one of the key areas which is contributing to waste, contributing to attitudes that are selfish, individualistic, my social media, I have eaten this, I have shown this, but the repercussions of this is you're sending out a wave to a whole bunch of people who don't have that, to say that they don't have this. We don't realize it, we're just showing it to our friends, but there's a whole bunch of other people who are seeing it, who are now saying that, okay, since I don't have it and I don't have the education, I don't have the learning, so maybe I can just loot a car that's driving by and rob them. Because they have the same aspirations, and why not? If you're eating such yummy stuff, why shouldn't they? Okay? And this is the dichotomy we live in, and we contribute to it. We make those fancy clothes and we do the branding and packaging, right? So how can we do this without that guilt? So that's when we got into natural fibers and the humane.co. Again, the humane.co, it was called the Humane Project. But when we went to register the domain, we found this .co domain, and the abbreviation was THC, which was like, wow. So we said, yeah, let's take this, and we made that into the main thing. We rebranded, and it's called the humane.co on Instagram and a website. So the idea was, can we make a curated portal that offers great design, okay, but is made by hand, by artisans, and made by natural material, okay, and it has that yin yang. You see the yin yang? So that's the balance. But even in the white, there's a black dot, and that's where we want to bring in technology. So if I can't make this garment stronger, because with natural materials it'll last me 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. But if I just make the finishing better with certain material, okay, make sure that it doesn't, I might increase the longevity. So then I want to use the highest tech, you know. So that's what we decided. We thought that, you know, let this be the yin yang ethos of humane, where we balance this, okay, but provide great modern quality of life, okay, but for everybody. And then, but how do you scale this? Okay, because one craftsman can make only, let's say, one product a day. Okay, so we said, but if the order comes for 1,000, how do you do it? Okay, so we said that you get 1,000 people. Okay, and I think that was the dream, that we get those 1,000 people. So I went and met a very, very interesting lady. She's now become my partner, and just in fact, so I told you I packed my bag, ran away from Pune. I have an amazing team. Wasim, many of you guys know. Wasim Khan, he is my partner. And Shweta, she's another partner in Lemon. And then there are a lot of interesting friends I have constantly inspire me, you know, and seniors and predecessors and companies abroad, you know, where you keep seeing people's work and they teach you a lot. So obviously I had these guys to back me up, and so I was ready to run, and I had got a ticket to Himachal and I landed up, and I had spoken to Shivani, my partner at Humane, and she's the third generation of a very interesting cooperative called Butico in Himachal. So they have over 1,500 Viva families and 200 knitters who are already working with them. Okay, and her grandfather had started it, her dad was a minister. So I obviously knew that if we wanted to do something, we wanted to also make sure that on the administrative side it has weight. You know, because to get 1,000 people is not going to be easy. So why not work with a cooperative like Hamir and Butico that are already in this thing? So I went with that intention, and then when I spoke to her, I wanted to explore hemp, but I knew she was working with wool. When I spoke to her, she said, "Oh, by the way, I'm also doing a lot of work in hemp." And I was like, wow, you know, and she's blending hemp with wool, you know, and blending hemp with cotton, and making fabrics with different gauges out of hemp. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting. Can I come over and meet you? So I went, she picked me up from the airport, and it was an early morning flight, reached at around 8:39. And we got chatting. I was planning to go and sleep, but we kept chatting. Then she took me around, and whole day we were chatting. Okay, and at 6 o'clock in the evening, she's like, "Partnership kar le." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I was like, fine. So I decided to stay there. So I started looking for a house. We're looking for houses, and they said that 3 महीने का rent है this many, like 3 lakhs, and साल भर के लिए ले लीजिए तो 4 लाख. 3 months के लिए 3 लाख, 4 महीने के 1 साल के लिए 4 लाख. I think I'll take it for a year. Okay, so I took it for a year, and then I called back these guys, and they're like, "What the, you know, what are you doing? How, what? Just decided to go there, and now you're staying there." You know, but I think that was a life-changing experience. Working with those communities, you know, there's a languishing craft of pula, and they're sold very cheaply now. Okay, we sort of revived that. There were only 3 practicing women. Now there are 20 active and 200 peripheral. Okay, plus we showed them how to make hemp rope. You know, we showed them how to make different things out of hemp. There are very interesting students from NIT and NIFT who are already working on this project with us. They're doing some amazing work. Anuj is like a constant advisor, okay, because he's another person whose work I really admire, because I think in the world of apparel and fashion, if in the last 20 years something new has come, where I love his philosophy of not cutting fabric, because I also learned from some weavers how hurt they get when you cut fabric. It's they've woven, you know, and I think his philosophy emulates that completely, you know. So butter masala is like always at the back of my head, you know, whenever we're doing something, because it's such a beautiful no footprint sort of a technique. Okay, I think we're almost done on time. So yeah, that's how Humane started. And that's what we started doing, and now we sort of keep doing that. So it's become a portal for Roti Kapda Makan, which is curated to an alternative, more responsible lifestyle, basically. Yeah. And it'd be great if you guys sort of really join us, work with us, check out what we do, give us your feedback, because we're always learning. Honestly, with 4 people, 5 people, I've been doing the shooting. I've never shot camera work, this, that, but out here with the phone, you shoot, you edit, and you put up things. So we are shooting ourselves, we are cutting, pasting, doing everything ourselves. And I think I'm really enjoying that. And I think if you can't be a hands-on designer, you'll never really understand design. So get your hands dirty, keep them dirty. Just that's what's really going to bring the best out of you. And I think don't compare yourself to anyone. You're very unique. There's never been a Varshini ever before, right?
Okay.
Really, has there been a person like you before born? Out of the same parents?
No.
Out of the same house?
No.
And there's never going to be one. So I think each one of us are sent here to do our own unique thing. Do that, discover yourself, and really feel strongly about who that person is under the iceberg. And I think it's the thinking that makes the design, not the aesthetics and the styling and the colors and everything. It all has to finally come together. And there's a saying by this guy called Buckminster Fuller. I don't know if you know him, but even if you don't know of him, you have already worked on his ideas of the geodesic dome. He's the inventor. He said, when I go about solving a problem, all I focus is in solving the problem. If it doesn't look good, I know I'm wrong. So I think don't focus on the optics and the aesthetics. Focus on what the substance is. If it's not good looking, you're wrong. Okay, go back to the drawing board. Okay, your first design should never be right. It may be right on hindsight, and it usually will be. But for that, you really have to get to that intuitive space where you can harness that energy. So thank you guys. Thank you for listening. And I don't know even if you're bored, some of you are smiling, so it's fine.
Thank you for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
We